I was more inclined to agree with the first judge's scorecards, which had Boaz winning. Junaid, like you said, he's got to run it back. Eddie's got to now stand on business, because he said several times during the week when he spoke to other channels, if you are not of English or British level, we don't want you. We want to deal with people that are at a certain level, and that's his benchmark. So it's almost like when Junaid goes back into this fight, it's a must win.
Pressure, the pressure, pressure, the what? Pressure, the pressure.
It was a very close fight, but as I said in the interviews during the week, you can't win English titles or perform at English title level. Maybe this isn't for you. Junaid's better than that. So, of course, he'll get another opportunity, and the rematch is essential. It's the only fight.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll be making next. And, it'll be a big fight, actually. I mean, there was good build-up earlier in the week. Great, drama after the fight as well, and a very good fight.
The pressure. A lot of people have said Eddie's putting too much pressure on his fighters. Well, it's only pressure if you don't believe you're good enough. If you don't believe you're good enough, yeah, I can see why Eddie's telling you if you can't cut it at British title level, you probably don't have a future here. You saw the pressure on Junaid Boston post-fight. He unraveled and just started rambling and babbling, and look, like October Red said, he was likely a little buzzed, perhaps concussed, adrenaline going at 1,000,000 miles per hour, etc. But he unraveled. Bilal was just as composed as before he threw a punch before the first bell. Now, I'm not going to get into whether it's a robbery or not. I thought Bilal won the fight. I kept a mental scorecard which had Bilal a clear winner in a good fight. 10 years ago, Bilal had issues with his immigration status and had to fight hard to stay in the country, and it derailed his career somewhat, and he's 36 now. So, yeah, Junaid is under pressure, just like Campbell Hatton when he challenged for the Central Area title against James Flint. He lost the 10-rounder, and then James Flint, in his next fight, lost to another prelim-level fighter. That wasn't on a Matchroom card, but in Flint's next fight after that, he fought Hatton on a Matchroom card and beat Hatton again. And at that point, his Matchroom career, at least for now, is over. And Eddie Hearn, in no uncertain terms post-fight, said, well, if you can't get past this level, where's it going? A lot of people thought it was harsh, but like I said, in James Flint's previous fight, he lost to a domestic level opponent with 7 fights, a 6-1 record, and then beat Campbell immediately after. Do you want to pay your subscription for fighters who can't get above Central Area level? That's for those of you who are saying Eddie's being harsh.
Someone I just watched and see. Just wanted to ask you about Campbell Hatton. Obviously 2 defeats in a row to Flint now, and kind of at that English title level. Where does he go from here now?
It's difficult because he's very young. Campbell Hatton's level is area and English title level. That's no disgrace. A lot of fighters don't even reach that level. But obviously with our stable and where we're looking to take fighters after back-to-back defeats, area title and English level, he's not really progressing. Went in the changing room after, and I said to Ricky Hatton, Ricky thought he edged the fight, and I said, in my opinion, I thought you lost 6-4. But I'm going to give you my honest opinion. But when it's 6-4, it can go either way. But, again, he gave us a brilliant fight, but he just wasn't good enough. The performance wasn't really much better, in my opinion, than the last performance.
The stakes are higher than they have ever been in British boxing. To a degree, domestic boxing is an afterthought after what happens in you-know-where.
Riyadh season.
If you want to hang on to your spot as a domestic fighter, you better produce big time. And that's not just on the Eddie Hearn promotional roster. That's on a Frank Warren roster. You look at Raven Chapman, Queensbury. She fights Clarice Argenstall on a boxer card. In the last fight, she lost to Sky Nicholson. If she loses to CLARESSA, you know, let's not go into Frank's history. He doesn't really have time for women's boxing. He says the right things now because it's the politically correct thing to do. Raven loses again, she'll basically be isolated in Queensbury. They don't have no more female fighters. Now Raven's a good fighter, so she could likely get another slot elsewhere. If Matchroom and Boxer can match Raven with some of their fighters, perhaps she can get a lifeline. That's if Frank drops her. I haven't heard anything. But these are the margins right now. And they've always been like that. There was already concerns that the Saudis are not interested in women's boxing. So only the best of the best are going to have a shot at becoming relevant in this current market. If Katie Taylor loses, she'll still be relevant. She's already built a cult following. Claressa Shields is fighting tonight on the zone. If she loses, she'll still be relevant. But the women will be feeling the pressure, knowing full well they're already prioritized behind the men. And it's not just winning. It's showing that superstar potential. That's what it's all about. Look at Josh Kelly. He beat Ishmael Davis, didn't he? Although I thought a draw would have been a fairer result. And that was on a Riyadh season card. But when Boychuk needed a replacement opponent, because Madrimov is now booked to fight Virgil Ortiz in a couple of days, they brought back Ishmael Davis, who lost to Josh Kelly, because Ishmael basically made the fight against Josh Kelly. If Ishmael stopped fighting, Josh Kelly would have still been bouncing around the ring, doing his Winkerbank impression or whatever it is. No disrespect to Josh Kelly. He has to ask himself how he won the fight and his opponent, who he beat, got the callback. He's got to ask himself some hard questions. I tell you what, that next gen card was kind of stiff. Often you see the prospects get fed soft touches on the next gen cards. But Derek Ozase for George Liddard won a hard-fought 10-rounder. I thought it was very close. Props to George Liddard. And Bilal Fawaz for Junaid Boston. That was quite stiff. Saw what happened to Cameron Vong when he fought Gavin Gwynn on a Matchroom card. They gave Vong the decision and Eddie's demanding a rematch. Sam Jones is doing everything he can to avoid going back in there with Gavin Gwynn. They don't want the fight. And you know what? I don't think Junaid Boston, I don't think his handlers. I'm not sure if Grant Smith wants an immediate rematch with Bilal.
How much time will he need to make the improvements?
To change the result like that. I'm not saying he can't win, but it's likely to be a controversial decision unless he can get him out of there. Because Bilal's just more seasoned, more cultured with his punches. He's able to pace the fight better. He's putting that Philly shell on Boston, walked him down, dictated the pace. Some really good stuff countering him. There was also a knockdown from a left hook that wasn't counted because the ropes is the only thing that held him up.
Should have been a 10-8 for Fawaz.
Fawaz tried to get a knockout in the 10th because he knew they weren't going to give him the decision. And that's just how it is for the away fighter.
A quick one to promoter Eddie Hearn. Eddie, your verdict on that from ringside and immediate rematch for this one?
Yeah, listen, I always back our guys. I thought Bilal edged the fight 6-4, if I'm honest. But it was a very close fight. And I thought he won the last 2 rounds to edge the fight.
Not for the first time, Eddie Hearn scores against the fighter he promotes. Frank Warren did the same thing when Liam Davis, Queensbury, was outpointed by Matchroom's Shabazz Massoud. You could argue that's counterproductive. Why would you score against your fighter? How many kids do you think run up on Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren who want to be chief support in Junaid Boston's position? Loads and loads. And some of them are good, and Frank and Eddie are having to turn them away. The fairest system is to let these guys know. Junaid Boston, for instance, if you don't turn up in that rematch against Fawaz, we're going to have to reevaluate your position as a Matchroom fighter. Then there's also integrity of the brand. If they're not going to call it down the line, what are the media going to say? What are the fans going to say? It's no good for the brand. That's not to say Frank or Eddie always call the scorecards down the line. They don't. But on occasion, it only makes sense that they do. Getting tough for the Matchroom prospects. You had Khalil Cole in America. At light heavy, he lost to Gallegos, who Diego Pacheco destroyed. And apparently, Khalil's going into an immediate rematch with Gallegos. Is that a good idea? Well, if he wants to stay on Matchroom, it is. And either before or after Khalil Cole, Jalil Hackett and Mark Castro, they lost. They both lost on the same card, same night.
But they were both pitched in with tough opponents with good records. And Eddie Hearn read them the riot act.
But you don't have to box. There's other jobs, there's other work out there. You're volunteering for that pressure. In my opinion, the real pressure is going into the ring knowing your opponent wants to take your head off. And of course, there's always going to be the burden or pressure on expectations of performance, of course.
The world of sport is too competitive. Do you know how much boys go for football trials in the United Kingdom with professional clubs and get turned down, dreams shattered?
Some of them have been on the books for 2 to 4 years, and then they get that dreaded call from the coach. We have to cut you.
Cut me, man. Come on, cut me. Cut me.
Pressure, the pressure, pressure, the what? Pressure, the pressure.
In my opinion, it's more like a pep talk from Eddie Hearn more than pressure. Because, look, regardless, if you sign to Matchroom, Queensbury, or Boxer, Top Rank, even GBM, right? If you sign to any of them, there's about 3 boxes where you're going to fit. I'm feeling the pressure. I'm not feeling the pressure. I'm going to go out there and do what I was destined to do. Or you're somewhere straddling in the middle. Because if you don't believe that the boxers' coaches are telling their fighters near the same thing that Eddie Hearn is, you're deluded. And Sinead Boston looked a little nervous in the ring to me. And if he holds his nerve, I'm not saying he can win the rematch, but he'll do a whole lot better.
Any quick reaction to Johnny Fisher's win tonight against Dave Allen? Harsh on Dave Allen?
To be honest with you, we were just talking about in there with Dave Allen. Johnny Fisher won the first 4 rounds and the 12th, definitely. Sorry, the 10th. It's whether you gave him anything of the 6th. The 5th was the knockdown round, so that's a 10-8. 6, 7, 8 or 9. And if you do, he wins the fight. If you don't, Dave Allen wins by a point. So for me, I had it a draw, and I thought, honestly, a draw was the best we could have for Johnny Fisher. To edge out the decision, although he showed a lot of heart, I think he was a little bit of a lucky boy.
Okay, I was incorrect. He scored Dave Allen versus Johnny Fisher a draw. I thought he gave the nod to Dave Allen. But Eddie wanted to see a rematch this year. And what people are failing to understand as a promoter is content. Fights have to be built up. So if Eddie is building a fighter at Matchroom and they have a hard night's work, a controversial win, or a close loss, or a conclusive loss, more than likely he'll have options on the opponent who made the Matchroom fighter look bad. And even if he doesn't, where are they going to go? There's nowhere they can go in Britain that pays like Matchroom or Queensbury. You have a built-in storyline for a rematch. And it's good content. People want to see good fights. Adam Azim, he did well yesterday against Lipinets. And look, if they're going to take the time they think is needed for Adam Azim to step up, that's what they're going to do. But you can't build him up as a star until he starts taking fights that have public interest. No one's interested. I was shocked Lipinets lasted longer than 6 rounds. But it was a good performance by Adam Azim. If he's in his 20s and he's as good as Boxer and Simon Jordan are saying, then he's ready to fight his domestic rivals. He's ready. And when I'm looking at him perform, he looks like he knows what he's doing. He's fast, he's powerful. What are they worried about? His chin? Is it something they're hiding? He can't hold a shot, so they're trying to stall out him taking on tough opposition until they can cash out. Or some kind of miracle occurs and he gets granite in his chin. Not saying he does have a glass jaw, I don't know. But what's the word everyone keeps using? Jeopardy. His fights have no jeopardy. And they better be careful he doesn't become stale and picks up bad habits. You see them low punches he threw? Get himself DQ'd next time. You got Ben Whittaker and Fraser Clark to come back from their indifferent performances on Riyadh season. Ben Shalom said the Liam Cameron Ben Whittaker fight is on the way. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one. And I like Ben Whittaker. And I hope he is feeling the pressure. It's all about how you respond to it. Not the fact that someone's putting you under pressure. It's how you respond to it. You can't take up a professional sport at this level and think that people are just going to leave you alone to become mediocre and pat you on the back. Just not going to happen. Like, I saw Johnny Fisher in an interview the other day with Charlie Parsons on the Stomping Ground, and he was a lot more reserved. There was no putting his name in the mix with the likes of Fabio Wardley as he did, Moses Atoma. It was, I'm on holiday chilling. When I'm in training camp, then it gets serious. But the Dave Allen fight changed him, and it's supposed to change him. It's supposed to make him reflect. It's supposed to ground him into who he really is and what his potential is. I think Mark Tibbs and his old man Jimmy will be thinking the longer they get and the more fights they can get before they jump back in the ring with Dave Allen, the better for Team Fisher. Because Dave Allen will be bang up for it. No doubt about that. You know, the reaction from the media and the boxing fans, I don't think it's because they dislike Eddie Hearn. I think they just like having headlines to talk about Eddie Hearn. But the facts are, I don't remember watching boxing and there wasn't a year where at least 2 or 3 prospects crashed and either got exposed and never made nothing of their careers, or they had to work through the crisis, an upset loss, or an indifferent performance and come back.
Pressure, the pressure, pressure, the what? Pressure, the pressure.
David Benavidez raised his record to 30 wins, 24 inside the distance. And at 28 years of age, you have to say he's one of the more popular fighters in America. And his scrap with the now 11-1-9 inside the distance, the 27-year-old Cuban David Morrell, will only add to that legacy. Because say what you want, he looks to be an entertaining fighter who hasn't reached his potential. He's got to stay busy. He can't wait to sit around until Beterbiev and Bivol rematch, and then he gets his chance at the title. I don't like his chances pitting his footwork, movement against Bivol's. I don't like his chances pitting his strength against Beterbiev. One of the issues Benavidez has, in my opinion, his punches don't seem to have the same snap at 175 as they did 168. And his high volume front foot forward style plays better on 168 and 175. And as much as I liked the fight yesterday, I think there's a little wear and tear there. Morrell is definitely a good rival for Benavidez. Their styles complemented each other in terms of entertainment. I think both of them should consider a rematch because, hey, everyone liked the fight. That's what counts really, more than belts. People don't understand that though for some reason. I guarantee you in hindsight there's a lot of fighters who would trade in their little world title trinkets for a career like Mickey Ward's, alluding to the 3 fights he had with Arturo Gatti for no world title. Benavidez, however, he needs to land a big fight. He's 28, but the way he fights will definitely take his toll before some of his peers who have a more elusive construct and more of a back foot game. Although he's not getting banged up like really bad or anything like that. He took the initiative behind that high guard and done a good job on blocking and putting his punches together and setting a good rhythm, which Morrell, after I see him fight Kaladzik on the Crawford-Madrimov bill, I had serious doubts about the fluidity of his boxing, and I did pick Benavidez. Morrell, not exactly a classical Cuban counterpuncher, is he? And he also wasn't prepared to fight the type of fight where it meant go all out, even if it meant getting knocked out to get the victory. Ronnie Shields was screaming at him midway to push Benavidez back because he could see that's where Morrell would be more effective, and he did it on occasion, but he just wasn't prepared to go that extra mile. And this is the difference between victory and defeat. Not saying Morrell wasn't valiant. He was. But he let Benavidez swamp him on accurate punches landed. It is what it is. Although Morrell, you know, in all fairness, he did a good job of countering. His feet were a lot better than they were against Kaladzik. I'll tell you that much now. Benavidez showed a very good left uppercut, one of his better punches. Morrell's southpaw stance was never an issue for Benavidez, not at all. His jab was always effective throughout the fight, and you can see that by the bruising underneath the right eye of Morrell by the end of the fight. There were some nice cameos by Morrell, but Benavidez normally reasserted control. Morrell did look good in the 4th, landing some hard right hands, letting his hands go. 9th round into the championship rounds, there was no doubt who was in front. In the 11th though, Morrell struck. I wasn't sure if the punch landed. I've looked several times. Apparently it did land the right hand. Benavidez, both his gloves did touch the canvas, although he got up and steadied himself without completely falling over. It looked like the punch hit him round the elbow. The 10-8 advantage for that round for Morrell was wiped out after he hit Benavidez with a right after the bell. And it wasn't a shove. This was a hard punch, and Benavidez felt it. Benavidez, however, stayed in control for the 12th. The official scorecards: 115-111 twice, 118-108. I'd like to see Morrell target the winner out of Boaxi versus Callum Smith, or perhaps the winner out of Yard versus Lyndon Arthur. He's a very good fighter. Better than what I thought, actually, David Morrell. Very tough. Either he's got a very good chin, or Like I said, I don't think Benavidez cracks very hard at 175. Perhaps an early Fight of the Year candidate, Benavidez Morrell, perhaps. Apart from the inflated pay-per-view pricing, a very good night's boxing for the PBC. We haven't had one for a long time. The only thing I can fault is the pay-per-view pricing. I haven't yet seen Pitbull or Fulton versus Figueroa. Hopefully I'll get round to that. David Benavidez, I have to say, man, I've got to give it up. He's one of the more entertaining fighters in the game. I have to give him his kudos. And he looks like he wants all the smoke, taking on all comers. Great display of boxing, aggression, and pressure.
Pressure, the pressure, pressure, the what? Pressure, the pressure.
Unanimous decision, 100, 89, 99, 89, 97, 92. Surprisingly close. All scored for Claressa Shields, defending her WBC heavyweight title. And she's took the vacant WBA, IBF, and WBO belts, outpointing Daniel Perkins. Near capacity crowd in Flint, Michigan. It was live in there, you know what I mean? Like, came out with Pat spitting his bars. It was very much like a party in there, but she stayed very professional. The Latin snake Sergio Mora said Claressa had to jab her way in there, but it makes sense now. She said she tore a ligament in her shoulder last Friday, so she wasn't able to use the jab consistently. So you saw Claressa throwing more overhand rights than you see her usually throw. And basically, she showed a lot of toughness because Daniel kept pressing the action. She was the bigger woman, considerably bigger, and she wanted to rough Claressa up. But Claressa had the better hand speed, and she sat down on her punches a lot better. In round 3, she found a gap as Danielle was in no man's land. She wasn't moving, she wasn't jabbing. I don't know if she was attempting to parry, speculating the right hand was going to come, but it did come right over the top of that left hand, and she was hurt badly. The fight continued, and the referee broke the two women up, and he seemed to maybe have just tapped Danielle either on her arm, the side of her torso, very lightly, and she went over because her legs were gone. 10-8 round to the referee. Danielle Perkins, a 6'2" southpaw. She tried to make the size count, but she just didn't have the skills, she didn't have the hand speed, she didn't have the ring IQ. Claressa was able to land the right hand all throughout the contest, and she done a very good job countering in what was a good demonstration of professionalism. She didn't lose her shape, not once. Danielle just couldn't shorten her shots, she couldn't match the hand speed, and she got outmaneuvered. Obviously, in the last round, she had to really try to go for it, and she did in the 10th. And as she walked forward to get at Claressa delivered another booming right hand that sent Danielle down. She got back up and looked a bit bewildered by it all. She walked back to a neutral corner, and she made it through to the final bell. She deserved to make it through to the final bell, but Claressa was dominant, undisputed heavyweight champion, and it was a very entertaining performance in what was a good weekend for American boxing. Claressa representing for the women, and the night before, David Morrell, David Benavidez doing what they did with the dudes. Big up Danielle Perkins, because she pressed the action, and Claressa did some good countering, and it wasn't totally one-sided, but whatever Danielle did land, whatever cuffing shot she did land, Claressa ate them and came back with the harder shots. Perhaps the most entertaining fight I've seen Claressa in. The chief support was for the USBA heavyweight title, pitting Brandon Moore against SKYLAR LACEY. I tell you what, yeah, Brandon had the better technique. SKYLAR, a big guy, what is he, 6'7", apparently he sparred with the likes of Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, I believe they said. But whenever the fight got close up, he seemed to get a bit of a panic attack, and he was holding on. Steve Willis had a nightmare. He deducted a point from Brandon Moore for holding when it looked like LACEY was initiating the infringements. And then there was this weird thing. He was going back to the corners between the rounds and saying, don't do this, don't do that, when he should have been admonishing them when the round was in play. And he did take points off SKYLAR LACEY, around 2 points, when he could have been tossed out there before the 8th round. And it's weird. Sergio Mora called it. Every time these two go to the ropes, you have to wonder if they're not going to go over the top. And they didn't go over the top, but they did go through the ropes as LACEY leaned in. And they both went out through the ropes. And like, LACEY ended up on top of Brandon Moore. And it was a pause, no HMO moment. It looked like a still from an MMA, UFC, ground and pound ting, where it looks a little sus. In this situation, they have 20 seconds to get back in the ring, and apparently Moore got back in by 18, and his hand was raised. He won by disqualification. Bizarre. Apparently neither of them have any serious amateur backgrounds. They played other sports and got into boxing. That's how far the USBA title has fallen. It was once quite a prestigious title in America. Cameraman fell over. The fight film skipped all over the place for a minute. It was crazy.